Beldine, and for this week's Books and Booze, I'm talking about this amazing novel, Less, by Andrew Sean Greer. We read this book for my book group this month, and we all really enjoyed it. And we had a similar experience as we were reading, that when we first started the book, we weren't really sure about it. It felt kind of light and fluffy. We weren't sure how we felt about the character, Arthur, and whether we wanted to read a whole book about him. But the book drew us in, and as we continued to read, we discovered layers of meaning and delight in the novel that we weren't expecting. Less is about a novelist named Arthur Less. He's a bit of a mediocre novelist who wrote one great book and has been sort of riding on its coattails ever since, in addition to the coattails of his very famous lover, who's much older than him and who he's no longer with. The premise of the book is that Arthur's younger boyfriend of 8 years has left him to go marry another man. Arthur does not want to go to the wedding, although he has been invited. And so he conceives a plan to travel all around the world to avoid this wedding. And he accepts many invitations to different conferences and events, and to give lectures and teach classes about writing all over the world. And meanwhile, he's going to turn 50 on this trip, and so he's dealing with a lot of sort of both heartache and existential issues. And one of the issues I think the book treats really well is the challenge for people in relationships with someone much older than them or someone much younger than them, and the various tensions that go with this. It's a real issue in people's relationships, and it's something that's somewhat common in gay culture. And I'd never really read a book that explored it with such nuance and sensitivity and humor. The book is really very funny, and so one of the jokes, the funny moments in the book, inspired this drink that we're going to make. It's called Grandma's Chacha, and it starts off with Arthur in Mexico on a tour eating some spicy salsa, and when he eats the salsa, it's kind of a relish. He says, "Oh my gosh, this tastes just like my grandma's chow chow." And if you're not familiar with it, chow chow is like a spicy kind of mid-American, Midwestern dish that some people make. And so Arthur identifies the salsa with it, but when he says it, everyone around him titters, "Your grandma's chow chow," which apparently is a bit lewd in translation in in Spanish, and it's a Mexican slang word. And so fast forward several chapters in the book, Arthur is in the Sahara with a woman, and they're both turning 50. And she drinks some of the local Moroccan liquor, and she says, "This tastes just like my grandma's Chacha," which is the name for the Georgian pomace brandy that they make there. And in Italian it's grappa, or in French or English it's marc, but it's the brandy made from the stems and skin of grapes that have already been pressed and fermented for winemaking. So unlike a brandy or a cognac that you would make from distilled wine, this is distilled from the remains of the winemaking. So we're going to make a drink called Grandma's Chacha. It's inspired by a sidecar, that kind of cocktail. And we're going to make it with pisco, which is not exactly cha-cha or grappa, but it's a sort of a Spanish approximation that was invented in the New World to replace that particular kind of liquor, although it's made slightly differently. So we're going to take 2 ounces of pisco. We'll do 1 ounce of Grand Marnier. One of my favorite things I want to mention about the book Less is that it really is a celebration of mediocrity. And there's a line in the book where someone says to Arthur about being a writer, either you're a genius or you're nothing. And Arthur says, I'd really like to believe there's something in between. And I think that really sums up the book. That normal people in normal life is not actually at these extremes of nothingness or genius. And I know as a writer, I don't think of myself as a genius by any means. And so I found a lot of comfort in this book on many levels. It was subtle and beautiful in a way that reminded me of A Gentleman in Moscow, and that's making me think that this is really a quality of great books right now, that you don't start off feeling like you're into something heavy, but by the end you realize you've been taken on a great and profound journey. So we have the juice of a lemon, an ounce of Grand Marnier, 2 ounces of Pisco. You could use grappa, mark, Chacha if you have it. And I guess you could always make a more traditional sidecar with lemon and Grand Marnier. We're gonna drop a couple drops of bitters in here because that is traditional in Pisco Sour, so it seems nice to nod to that other famous cocktail in this variety. Sometimes with a drink like this, you might sugar the rim, and it's not a bad idea. Although I think the Grand Marnier is going to be sweet enough for us. We don't really need to balance out tart. Beautiful color from the lemon. The Pisco is clear, and then that orange hint from the Grand Marnier. A little lemon wedge garnish. That's delicious. It's Grandma's Cha-Cha, inspired by Arthur Less in Andrew Sean Greer's really delightful and profound novel, Less. I hope you'll give this book a read and maybe make one of these to go with it. 2 sips this time. Thanks for watching.